You're listening to the Terrible Christian Podcast.
Welcome to the Terrible Christian Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Lemon, and this is episode number 6. And I am very excited to have one of my dear friends, someone I'm very excited for all of you guys to get to meet. And I'm going to introduce him. His name's Brad McMahan, and he is a self-proclaimed professional Christian. Yep. He's the pastor at Adventure Christian Church in Jeffersontown, Kentucky. Welcome,
right,
brother.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Well, why don't you... okay, so this is actually the perfect timing because I re-listened to your last message. And you just ended a great series, and it's hilarious because it so interlocks with where I've been and like what's been kind of bothering me. There's a lot of parallels here. So there's a few things I want to get your take on, just in general. You know, he is an expert compared to me, but he's just a regular dude, so it's I don't expect him to have all the answers, but opinions for sure.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. Well, the best is better than bad. Yeah. All right, so one of the things that struck me lately, and you could use the phrase like, the world just seems to be getting worse, but I think you could say that at any point.
Sure,
in time. It's just perspective maybe and differences of how we live versus how other people used to live. But there really seems to be a move towards, I guess, a self-centric, a self-focused, a love of self, a putting oneself as the God of their life. Yeah. And, you know, it's, I guess... Do you see that in culture, and what do you think is causing it?
So the answer to your question, yes. I mean, obviously, before coming to Adventure, I spent 17 years, almost 2 decades, doing student ministry, and so even in that, you like the shift to this is like. We remember back when MySpace came out, right? Before Facebook was available and open to everyone, there was MySpace for anyone that wasn't a current college student, and it was really at that kind of the advent of MySpace. You started to see there was a platform, and there was a way for people to begin to broadcast who they were. Mm-hmm. And that in that space of broadcasting who they were, then it gave other people the opportunity to then judge that, or assess that, or criticize or comment, whatever it would be. Basically, you're putting yourself out there and you're asking the world to give you feedback on who you are. And just by nature, right, of us, like if we receive negative feedback, we want to then go shift and change that. Mm-hmm. So as MySpace kind of became a thing, and then Facebook became a thing, and then then you have I think it was in 2007 is when the iPhone came out.
I remember that.
And then you had the ability now to have, not only do you have access to these spaces in social media now is a thing, social networking. Before it was networking, now it's media, right? Because before it was just a means of connecting and staying connected to people. Well, now it's
interesting. I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right.
Now it's media.
Go connect to an old friend. Now it's everything you do is a channel. It's a brand.
Absolutely, and it is, and it's media at this point. It is photos and videos and songs and
podcasts.
And but at the end of the day, though, it's who I want you to believe that I am, right? Because I'm not going to just again backing all the way up to like when all this stuff started. You put yourself out there, and then you get made fun of, or someone says that. Because you remember, you could attach songs to your MySpace page. So like when people would log on, like a song would start playing. It's like, that song's dumb. What would you do? You go change that song to the things that you wanted people to listen to and the things that you wanted people to like. And I do think that prior to that, even the bend towards self has always been there. It's always present. I mean, you find the bend towards self back in Genesis 1, right? Or Genesis 2, rather, when God is creating, Adam and Eve, and he's creating people, and you have the moment in the garden where, the serpent, Satan, comes in and he tempts Eve, and the way that he tempts Eve is, well, are you sure what God said was don't eat of that fruit, right? Are you sure that's what he meant? Mm-hmm. And then the kind of the big push over the cliff was, well, the reason he doesn't want you to eat that is because then you'll be like him. Yeah. And so the sin in that space, in that moment, is obviously we step outside of what God says he wants us to do, but the reason we do that is because we want to be like him. Like, I don't want to be held back from that. And so you have that thing that exists, like the selfish, the individualistic deal that exists under the skin, under the surface in humanity for all time. And I think what's happened recently is within the last 20 years is now we have a means and a way of broadcasting that. And so that's the kind of the seismic cultural shift is we take something that's existed for all mankind, right? For all the history of mankind, from the moment that life was breathed into us. Mm-hmm. And now we've just given people the ability to put that out there. And that's why, and then I say, the student ministry thing was so interesting, because I'm 40, right? So I've always been behind. I was the last person. Yeah, I was the last person to get a MySpace, and then, it took me forever to figure out Facebook, and now I'm supposed to figure out Instagram and Snapchat and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I'm terrible at Instagram. I'm terrible at social media. But I remember in student world when it's this kind of phenomenon called Finstagrams. Okay. Right. So if parents, if you're watching this and you've got a middle school, high school kid that has an Instagram account, go ask them about their Finstagram account and watch them freak out. Because what this is they call them fake Instagrams. Okay. But the whole thing's kind of a play on words. It's kind of tongue in cheek. Because actually my Finstagram, my fake Instagram, is actually who I really am. Oh. And they bury the username or the handle is always something really bizarre. Yeah. Like their initials and 10 numbers. Mm-hmm. But if you ever look at people's Finstagram accounts, they only let a handful of followers in, because on this side of the curtain, I'm going to let you see who I really am. Yeah. But then I've got an Instagram account that's my public facing.
And so what's scary about that is what I'm reading between the lines. It's like the Finstagram account is more so, hey, this is my love of sin. This is I'm letting my guard down, and that scares the crap out of me. Yeah, kids,
or it's just if it's something that maybe
you're doing stuff that you don't want others to see you doing. And typically anything you're doing like that is either bad or it's
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Or it's real. That's the thing that's crazy about it to me is, because on one side it's like the people will, and again, I'm talking about the younger generation, but they've got no problem throwing up on their Snapchat or their Instagram or their Instagram story, them at a party, or them blitzed or trashed, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's where everybody is. And I want you to see that I get invited to the parties and I get to be where the cool kids are and I get to do all this kind of stuff. But then on the Finstagram side, it's, hey, I'm really lonely.
Oh, okay. So I was reading that.
But that's kind of the way. So it's the realness. It's the realness. It's the reality of I'm really lonely. I'm sad. I'm anxious. I'm stressed out. I'm depressed. I'm whatever it may be. But I'm only going to let a few people see this part of me. Sure. But I'm going to make sure that everybody sees this part. That says, I went to the party and I got trashed. But over here, I'm going to go, I really regret what I did, right? But I'm not going to let everybody know that I regret what I did because I want you to think that, this was awesome, all that. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, there's a piece of that is, we've created, we now have the ability to create and broadcast something that appears to be desirable, or fits the mold of being desirable. And with the whole influencer, phenomenon in social media, if you do that well enough, you can make lots of money.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what everybody's wanting to become. But is why there's a documentary on Netflix right now. I need to watch it. It's all about social media. But
I started it last night. It's really scary so far.
I can't imagine.
I want to get rid of everything already.
So the flip side of that is you look at all the research and all the data that's been done on what social media does to mental health, and none of it is good.
Yeah.
None of it is good.
The addiction side of it, the self-worth, the negative. I mean, the suicide rates are higher ever since.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a plain graph where it's it's pretty normal for decades and decades, and then social media.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, and the story broke yesterday.
You went down. I went up.
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
It's one of these. Now we're just cats. But yesterday the story broke, and I don't have TikTok. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to use it. And I don't dance, which is apparently what everybody does, because I can't.
You told me you could.
Well,
on stage, you love to get down.
I do love to dance, but I'm a terrible dancer.
Well, it doesn't matter. I don't think David probably was very good.
I do. This is where I live.
Keep it tight.
Keep it tight.
All right.
But yesterday it broke on TikTok that the video circulated and it got pulled down, but by the time it got pulled down, millions of people had seen it. It was a guy who took his life on social media. Took his life on social media for a broadcast that for everybody to see. And so now you have that even.
It makes sense. That's the progression, right? If you're broadcasting your life, then
you're going to broadcast the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
if you could go back, if you think about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it really comes, you said it's been since, it was breathed, life was breathed in. Well, part of it, it's kind of twofold, right? We were made in God's image, and we were made to worship. That is inside of us, right? Yep. So we want to worship something.
Yeah.
And because of sin, we tend to focus on ourselves rather than focusing on God.
Yep.
And so when you're focusing on yourself and you were created with this characteristic to worship, then you're just, it's a natural
worship of self.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what Satanism is.
Yeah.
Right? I think a lot of people think, well, Satanism is the worship of Satan. And that's if you read the Satanic Bible, which I've read some of it.
Impressive,
right? Just because you get a chance to look at the enemy's playbook, right?
Absolutely.
You're gonna you want
to.
You
really think it's his playbook? Because I think he's way smarter than
I don't know, but what Satanism promotes is not so much the worship of Satan, but it is the worship of self, right? Mm-hmm. And to go back even to say that self-centeredness has been, was in us, or that ability to, that deal was in us from the beginning. Sin was not breathed into us, right? So we were created, when God created Adam and Eve, right? The first people, He created them to reflect Himself. It says in the Scriptures, it says in Genesis that we were created in His reflection, right? We were created to reflect Him, and that word in Hebrew literally translates impression, right? So when we were made, He made an impression on us, right? So and the way that I make that make sense in my own brain is you imagine if a sculptor sculpts something and then at the end, right, they put their thumbprint on it, right? Or if you've ever poured concrete, which I know you do, right? If you ever poured concrete and with your kids and your kids put their hands in the concrete, that's an impression. Well, what can fill that impression? The only thing that can fill that impression entirely is the hand that made it. Right? And so we were created to always be within arm's length of our Father, right? Because the only thing that can fill that impression made on humanity is the hand that made it, which is His hand. But when we were made to reflect Him, we were also given the ability to choose and to have free will, which He has. And it's crazy because I think some people think that God lives on a rail. That everything's been predetermined from the beginning, and God is He's just letting things play out that He's predetermined, right? But we see in Scripture, in fact, in the series that we just got out of here, there are 3 different times that God looks at the Israelites, right, the Hebrew people who have done something stupid, and he says, I'm going to wipe them out. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm done. I'm going to wipe them out. Moses, I'm going to start over with you. And Moses goes, no, don't do that. And then God changes his mind, right? Why does God change his mind? Because he has the ability to do that. He has the ability to choose. And we, being reflections of him, have that same ability to choose. And so he created us, and he put us in a place where we were meant to work, where we were meant to have purpose, in the garden. He put us there to take care of creation, to be the caretakers of everything that he created. And then he set some guardrails, right? Just like we set guardrails on an interstate. He's like, here are the things that, in order for this to work. And the other thing too, and people, whether you've read the Bible or not, people get God created this, and he stepped back and he looked at it and saw that it was good. Well, it's good. Again, in Hebrew translates, it works like it's supposed to.
Interesting.
Right? So God says, in order for all of this to work like it's supposed to, here are the guardrails. And it's just like the guardrails we have on the interstate, right? You have the ability to choose to jump that guardrail and drive in the median. But if you do that, right, you're taking your life and the lives of other people in your hands. And honestly, that's really not, unless you've got a big off-road vehicle, that's not where your car is meant to go. When, Honda or Toyota or Ford made your car, it's like, it's meant to be on the road. It's not meant to hop the guardrail and drive in the grass.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. God says, look, the way I created you, you're meant to live here. And it's not a rail. It's not a train on a train track that goes only where the track goes. God says, here's an 8-lane highway. Mm-hmm. Just stay in between the guardrails. You've got all this space out here to play in. Mm-hmm. Go there. But if you choose to hop over, right, then you got to deal with what's out there, right? Mm-hmm. And the natural consequences that come from that. And so I think that's really, I want to make sure I'm clear on that like when God created Adam and Eve, he didn't breathe sin into them because he's not, like, he can't do that, right? Because God is sinless. Yeah.
And if I said that, I didn't mean
no.
Check the tape.
No, but what he did was he breathed into us, and he created us with that impression, with some of the same abilities that he has, which is the ability to choose. Yeah. And we see God change his mind and choose something different.
Creation is the perfect example of his free will.
Yeah.
He decided to make. He didn't have to. He was in a perfect relationship with Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Why make it?
Yeah.
He decided he wanted,
Yeah.
I mean, I look at that kind of like as a father, right?
Yeah.
Like once I became father, I understood so much more about God's character, but it's like, why do we have children? We want to have these little things that,
reflect us.
We want to love them, and we want them to love us.
Yep.
Like it's a relationship, and we want that for life.
Yeah.
And so we have children, and it's, I don't know, like I think we complicate God is so far beyond our understanding in many aspects. Yeah. But at the same time, we try to complicate very simple, realities.
Well, this is the other thing too that blows my mind about that. And you think about even your own kids and my own kids. I think about all the times that they frustrate me, or all the times I tell them to go left and they go right, and I'm like, why did you zig when you're supposed to zag? Like, why did you, and that's frustrating as a father, right? And that's frustrating because they have attitudes and they disobey. And when God breathed life into Adam and Eve, he breathed life into them knowing, here's what's going to happen. Yeah. That there's going to come a point when they either choose to trust me and stay with me or choose themselves, right? And I know they're going to choose themselves. And he did it anyway, right? And you even see those moments too, like where God changes his mind. The times that he changes his mind in that story in Exodus that we just covered over the last few weeks. It's like God knew when I'm done with them. I'm tired. I'm mad. I'm angry. They've slapped me in the face enough. I'm going to wipe them out. Mm-hmm. No, don't do that. Well, when he changes his mind knowing that they're just going to keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again, right? And so it's one thing to go, I'm going to change my mind and hope that you don't ever do that again, versus I'm going to change my mind knowing fully that you're going to continue to betray and step outside and hurt yourself and hurt other people and not do the things that I have said to do. But I love you so much that I'm going to change my mind anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing that can do that, in my opinion, is love, because it's like, you go back to the kid part again. It's like, your child is committing the same wrong, disobeying the same rule over and over and over again. Punishment isn't working, but you know in your mind, I need to continue this pattern of, discipline so that she or he will, hopefully change their behavior. And we're doing this because we love you and we want it to be better. But there are times where it's just like, because I love you so much this one time, I'm going to let it slide, but I know it's going to happen again. Yeah. It may happen in an hour, and I may, at that point, okay.
Well, and then even that too, like in the moments where your kids, and my kids yesterday, both my boys yesterday did some stupid stuff. They have friends over, and it's like the NTI, like there's like it's like as soon as the computer screen is able to close down for the day, all of the pent up, like, they just let it out. And so they had two friends come over yesterday, and they just completely trashed like our basement, and they completely trashed like outside of our house. I mean, they had a water balloon fight, so now I'm picking up millions of pieces of water balloon, and I'm super frustrated with them because they just trashed our house. But here's the thing, it's like never, like if I could take me in that moment and rewind backwards 8.5 years to before my oldest son was born, would I look at myself, would I be able to convince myself not to go ahead and make a kid with my wife, right? Like, knowing everything that I know about the difficulties and the frustrations and all that kind of stuff, would I go back if I were able to go back in time with what I know now, would I still do it? Would we still go forward and have our two boys? Yeah. Right? And I think that's the kind of thing, it's like you can't imagine, even in those moments of like peak frustration, the thought, I mean, even though we say it sometimes like, I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it, right? But the thought of that really happening, for the most part, is never really on the table. It's like, if I were able to go back in time, knowing what I know now about the frustrations and all the times you're going to disobey and trash our house and do all this kind of stuff, would I still do? Yeah. And it's the same way for God, right? It's like knowing what I know in my infinite wisdom and my infinite knowledge, I know where this is going to go. But I'm still gonna. I'm not gonna wipe you out. I'm still gonna breathe life into you, and I'm still gonna offer you forgiveness and limitless love. Right? Like I'm still gonna offer that.
I've said it on this podcast a few times, but it makes so much sense to me now. I used to wonder. I'm like, okay, God, you know all. You know the future. You know whether Brad's going to choose, to follow and love and make Jesus the Lord of his life, whether I'm going to, whether you are. And some people out there are not going to choose that. Yeah. And God knows that. Right. Yet he still loves them. And I had a hard time understanding that, and again, until becoming a parent. And then it was like, you equate it to like, okay, if my kid just goes off the rails, their life, becomes a mess, and I'm doing everything to try and, be there for them, help them, let them hit rock bottom like God lets us hit rock bottom, sometimes, to see that change, and just no matter what, I'm going to be there, no matter what, I'm going to love them, and they just continually, don't want me in their life, I'm going to chase them to the ends of the earth, no matter what. No matter what. Even if, the day I die, I was unsuccessful, that's still my kid. I love them. And that's, the way that's kind of hard, trippy to think about before you're a dad or mother, because, I mean, I really, truly had a hard time understanding that aspect. Why would he love someone that hates him? You know?
Yeah.
Like, why?
Or continually pushes it, just get out of my life. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, but he does.
Yeah.
He's built different.
Way different. All right, to bring it back a little bit.
I know we're all over.
No, yeah, it's like our lunch that one time where I just like couldn't stop because it was like 30 different subjects, and we both have ADD, so that's
great. It's a gift.
Yeah. But this is my fear too. Back to the social media and kind of the technology advancements that we're seeing, is obviously the technology side is progressing at a rate that is insane, right? Yeah. Over the last 50 years, technology is just absolute. I mean, you can look at anything that we use in daily life, and it's just immensely different. And So that's going to continue that trend, and at one point, it's even going to skyrocket even further. And I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories or Revelation and Mark of the Beast, whether we're all going to get implants and all that. But I do want to ask, do you see this world continuing the trend of the self-focus?
Yep.
And if so, how can we stop it? I know the answer to this. But I think we got to say it because the show is called The Terrible Christian. So you've already said it's going to continue.
Yeah.
What do we do about that?
Yeah, well, I think, I'm trying to think of the best way to be able to kind of walk through this. But because when we deny that we're sinful, and we deny that sin is a real thing, and in doing that, kind of embrace this. Well, it's you do you, and I'm going to live my life the way that I want to live my life, and we celebrate and worship individualism and secularism and things like that. What we do in those spaces is it basically at that point there is no solution. There's no real solution for sin and evil. Right? Or evil. Let's just say if you don't believe that you're sinful, let's just take sin off the table for a second. There's no real solution for evil other than kind of placing blame and pointing at other people. So like when I look at if I don't believe in sin and I don't believe that I am sinful and I can do whatever the heck I want, then I look at all the problems and all the things in the world that you cannot deny are problems. Systemic racism is a problem. The world hunger is a problem. Injustice is a problem. Those things are issues. Healthcare at times is a problem. And so you look at those issues, and the only way to fix those kinds of things are either through technology or by electing someone or by putting someone in charge or trying to come up with the best idea. And when that idea doesn't work or that elected official doesn't follow up on their promises, what do? We blame that person. Right? We blame that person for, well, you said you could fix all this evil and you could fix these problems, and you haven't fixed these problems, so it's your fault. And to me, I look at that and I go, that's kind of the state of things right now. It's like you look at our world right now, and everybody's pointing their finger at everybody else.
If I can interrupt real quick, I think a lot of that has to do, again, with that, we're talking about the self-centric kind of viewpoints. It's when you are looking at everything outside of you externally and blaming, all the things outside of you for the problems in the world, for the problems in your own life and all that. It's because, again, that self-love, it's almost like a barrier between, it's your way of protecting yourself. And I did this up until really recently when I really focused in on living for Christ. It's like, I still had a big part of me that was, looking at the world as, you're a problem, or judging that person, or, this policy is terrible for this reason, and I can't believe someone can be so stupid. I literally had these horrible thoughts, but it was because I was protecting myself, because I wasn't quite ready to look within. To the point that I needed to the point that God needed me to, so that I could truly change my heart, truly soften my heart.
Right.
And the turnaround is just incredible. And that's a whole nother episode. But at the same time, I guess we're steering towards what I'm thinking, which is the trend is going to continue. You explained why it's happening and kind of what it looks like. And I think I know for sure the only true thing that can fix it is the only fixer in the universe.
It's Jesus.
That's right.
And that's exactly right. And because again, you look at this when we deny sin and we deny our sin nature and we deny that sin exists within us or within others, there's really no fix. That's the thing that really ultimately sucks about all that is, what hope do you have then? Mm-hmm. You are leaning back on and you are hoping in systems that are deeply flawed and deeply broken. right? So it's I look at the evil in the world, and I look at all the problems of the world, and I'm going to lean back on the American government, right, to fix those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can pretty much all agree that's broken, right? It's a broken system.
Mm-hmm.
And even in situations like here in Louisville, right, where, we've got the Breonna Taylor case that's happening, and cities around where it's like, well, there's a broken system. What do we need to do? Get rid of the mayor, right?
Like that's going to solve it.
It is like, so do you think that is the answer? Do you think that, so what you're hoping to do is, well, if we get rid of this guy and we bring in somebody else, that person will fix everything, and things will magically
get better. Looking for a savior?
Yeah, exactly. But it isn't. But you're looking for a savior in places where, in systems and in things that are flawed and broken, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we made them.
Yes.
Right, and so that's the thing. And for me, we actually talked about this just a few hours ago in our church staff meeting, where we said the deeper we see the pain and hurt in the world, and for me, the more exhausted I get with the pain and hurt in the world, the more I realize that Jesus is the only answer. 100%. But that hasn't always been the case, right? Yeah. And I was even thinking back to why is it that just now in my life I'm going, man, I can't wait for Jesus to come back.
Right.
I can't wait for Jesus to set this stuff straight. Whereas before I would have said, I kind of like living.
Yeah.
I kind of like life.
Yeah.
Even as a believer, it's like I kind of like life. There's some things I've got some things on the bucket list that I want to see, I want to do. And God, could you get on my schedule, make sure that I do these things before you come back? Now I'm looking at it going.
Can we just get super real though, right there with what you said?
Yeah.
Because I've been dealing with that, and I think the truth behind it is there's still a good, there's always going to be a small part of us, but there's still a good chunk of you at that time that loves sin.
Yeah.
Loves self.
Yeah.
Loves.
I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Feeling good. And the devil's really good at providing things that feel good in the temporary state of life, but are very harmful long term, especially if they build upon each other and grow.
And that's a tension even within, like I said, that's a tension within believers. I can remember talking to a college age girl one time, and we were talking about Jesus, Jesus coming back, and he made the promise he's going to do it. We don't need to worry about when. He's got that figured out. We just need to keep doing what we're doing and helping people understand the truth about who he is and step into that relationship. And her response was, "Boy, I hope he doesn't come back until after I get married and after I have kids." And I'm like, "Why?" Well, I really want to do that. Mm-hmm. And so the truth is, like, we have within us this strange tension of the stuff that we really want to do and the bucket lists that we have in life, and things that we want to accomplish or things that we want to see or experiences we want to have. And so what happens is this tension is created within us of, I want to do these things in a world that is saturated and soaked in evil and is broken and nothing works like it's supposed to. Yeah. And I want to do these things as opposed to living in a restored world where everything works like it's supposed to.
Exactly.
But the thing is in our humanity, we look at these things and we go, yeah, those two things are about the same. Like, I want Jesus to come back, and I want this world to be set. I want him to set the world straight and make it work like it's supposed to again, right? Because that's how the Bible ends, right? The Bible ends with heaven and earth colliding, and what started in Genesis with everything working like it's supposed to, the end of the Bible is, hey, it's going to all work like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And so we get in this weird tension of going, yeah, I want that. But I want that just as much as I want to get married and have kids. Mm-hmm. And it's like, really? Mm-hmm. Right? But that's that individualism. That's that thing of, yeah, I would take getting married and having kids in a world that is broken to the core versus God coming back and straightening everything out.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Which, when you say it out loud, you go, whoa, that's bad.
That's going to be a weird time. But it's also... Okay, for me personally, and I don't know, it depends, I guess, on where people are at in their walk, but it's like, I'm at the point where I hate this world, hate it, and cannot wait till the day that God takes me home. Does that mean I'm suicidal? Absolutely not,
right.
Because I have God's love, God has given me a purpose, and Jesus has given me a mission to go make disciples, and the joy and the I don't even know how to put it into words, and I'm a person that uses a lot of words, and it's incredible to have God use you and feel that and be a part of that. It's not me doing anything, it's God using me and me wanting him so badly to use me that I'll do anything that he wants me to do. And that's an interesting way to live, because then I guess I'm on the other side of what we've been talking about, where it's like I personally have stopped caring about a lot of the things I used to. Politics, all these things, job security, you name it. The things that I used to care about that were worldly just absolutely are not a part of my life. Like I even have a hard time watching, any TV whatsoever, anything not related to God, because it's not feeding me eternally. It's and
it's numbing you out.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I do need that. For an hour I just need to shut everything off. But it's a weird thing, because it's like now I feel like, I don't want to say scared. I'm not scared even, because I trust where God's going to lead me, but I'm having a hard time caring about things I'm supposed to. And when you've lived your whole life caring about those things, it's a weird.
But I think there is a space, and what we talked about and what we're talking about really from now until the end of December is faithfulness, here at church. And faithfulness, the definition we've given to that is, what we are faithful to, or faithfulness to us is it's committing to and arranging your life around who or what you believe will best take care of you and provide for your needs, right? So that is, in that definition, it kind of answers two questions. It answers the who or what thing, who and what I'm supposed to do, right? Which is commit to and arrange my life around, right? And then it answers really what that means, which is, and who that is. It's, I'm going to commit to and I'm going to arrange my life around who or what I feel like can best take care of me and provide for my needs. That's what faithfulness is. And the difference, what we talked about for the last few weeks, between faith and faithfulness is faith is what I believe. That's invisible and it's internal. Faithfulness is then how I live, which is visible and external. So you can look at my life. If we had a camera that followed my life around, or your life around, if you had a camera that followed your life around, we could tell just by watching you, probably even for less than a day, what you believe in, number one, and then what you are faithful to, how you work that out.
Because of time, really, because we give our time to the things that...
Well, like I said, that's why that definition is you commit to and arrange your life around.
Sure,
that thing that you believe or who you believe will best take care of you and provide for your needs. And so, when we talk about, like, Adam and Eve, go back to Adam and Eve. They were given a purpose. Like, they were intended to commit to and arrange their life around God. Why? Because he created them. But then he gave them, beyond that, he gave them a purpose to care for and take care of all the things that I've created. And basically this is yours, right? So care for it. Take care of it. And I think we can, as believers, we can commit to and arrange our lives around God, but then at the same time do what's necessary to take care of the things that he's given us.
Sure.
Right? So for me, like I said, that professional Christian thing, and the reason I say that is when people ask me what I do, if you want to see a group of people like look at their shoes and get real awkward and try to tell them you're a pastor.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're like, oh, like... what a buzzkill, right? So, there have been times like when people are like, now what do you do? It's like, I work for a nonprofit.
There you go. So we're trying to change lives in Louisville, just mental health stuff.
Spiritual health, mental health, things like that. But if you want to see a bunch of people just like the air go out of the room and people try to find a way out, tell them you're a pastor. But where I'm going with that is like my job, what I do, and working for a church, I've committed to and I've arranged my life around God because I believe that he is the one who can best take care of me and provide for my needs and the needs of my family. Now, he's also, at the same time, though, in addition to that, he's given me a purpose. And my purpose is my occupation, right? My occupation just happens to be vocational ministry, which gives me a paycheck, which allows me to pay bills and keep a roof over my kids' heads and put food on the table and those, keep the lights on and those kinds of things, too. Now, you ask my wife, who has also committed to and arranged her life around God because she believes that he can best provide for her and take care of her needs and the needs of her family. She's a teacher, right? And that's the thing and I would say her approach to being a high school anatomy and biology teacher is she feels just as called to that by God as I do being a pastor.
That's awesome.
And so it is just as much ministry for her as vocational ministry is for me, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would say in that, you've got, not only has God asked you to commit to and arrange your life around him, but he's also given you people to take care of, right? Your wife and your kids. And in doing that, he's given you a means in which to do that is also ministry, right? Mm-hmm. So, you're not just putting, concrete around people's pools, right? Mm-hmm. You have the opportunity to do that and take care of the people that he's given you, but also to take care of your employees, to run your business different, to value the things that he values and not necessarily the things that the world values. And that by nature, when God set Israel, right, the nation of Israel, the Hebrew people apart, he set them apart to be different, to be priests, to be magnetic, to draw people to themselves, and in doing that, to then redirect them to who he is, right? Yep. And so we get to do the same thing. And so that's where I would say, it's okay for us to care about our jobs, whether you're selling insurance or you're a bartender or you are waiting tables or you're blue construction, whatever it is, you can care about that. And still commit to and arrange your life around God. Yeah. Right? And you can be faithful to him. And you can still care about those things because he's given you a means not only to take care of the world, but also to take care of who's in your world. Yeah.
Well, it's like the old adage where, it used to be go out to all nations and, spread the gospel. And then the message is, been redirected in the sense of, listen, God put you, there's still people called to go do that, but God put you where you're supposed to be, and that is where you are to mission. Yeah. And to your point, it's that is where I've seen the most change with people around me is at work. Yeah. So that is.
Well, I think, and that is you. That God, and I think this is the thing, we miss this. I think that God, when he created humanity, he created humanity with and gave us purpose, right? To care for the things that he's created. And so that's the thing, for you, it's you're seeing this impact at work. That's where I see the most changes in the people in my employees, the people that I manage. And not only has he given you, again, Josh, for you, it's not only has he given you a means to take care of your family, but he's also given you a leadership position and people to take care of, even in that. And so, that's the thing for us, where it's you talked about, it used to be that the message was go into all nations. Well, if you look at the Great Commission at the end of Matthew, right, which is, again, famous. If you've been in the church or not, you've probably heard somebody at some point say, well, there's this thing called the Great Commission.
I just did a whole thing on Matthew 28:19 through 20.
Yeah, so it's the, so Jesus says, the only time Jesus says it, all authority on heaven and earth has been given to me, which basically is, I'm the boss, right? So, and it's the only time he says that, right? And I would say if you could be publicly executed and shoved in a hole for 3 days and walk out alive,
you're the boss.
You're the boss, right? Find me somebody else that's done that, and I'll follow him. But since Jesus right now is the only one, he's the guy. So he says that, and then he says, so therefore, right? And anytime in the Bible you see therefore, you have to ask yourself, what's the therefore? Yeah. Right? So in light of what I'm asking you to do, it says go and make disciples. Well, we read that as go, right? Mm-hmm. But the New Testament is written in Greek, and if you take that phrase, therefore go and make disciples, the first verb isn't actually go, it's make. So it actually I would say more literally translates, therefore, as you go, make disciples. So which means that anything and everything you do can be ministry. Mm-hmm. As you go to work, as you go to soccer practice, as you get your kids ready for school, as you go to the grocery, as you go on vacation, make disciples, right? So I love the fact that Jesus takes all of the limits off of what disciple making and what ministry can be, and he says basically, you can make it anything. Mm-hmm. As you go, make disciples. As you go, do ministry. And so that's why I think it's why we can we can care about our jobs, and we can be good at our jobs, and we can put time, effort, energy into our jobs, but we can't do so at the expense of making disciples.
Yes.
Right.
And yes, I mean, I would say that's the fine line, because there is that. And for people that are like me, it's even harder. There's this all or nothing, right? Yep. And so it's like when you're all work, then it's a way of, it's just like any addiction. Like work can become addiction, whether it's, porn, video games, like alcohol, all those are separators from God. And I guess that's the tricky part, right? Is finding that balance so that you are not separating yourself from God.
That's what Jesus does in the Great Commission, is he commissions us, and then he basically takes the lid off and says, anything that you do, you can bring me into it, and I can be a part of that purpose with you, right? And that's the thing I love about that, is it's like there's no lid on that. It's like, as you go, make disciples.
Anywhere. And you different. I mean, there's been, so for the longest time I was in sales, my business even, there's still a ton of sales. And so I've been in thousands of people's homes, and I'm not exaggerating. And there is like, I don't know, probably 50 times I would say that I immediately felt something different. And by the end of the conversation, they're a hardcore Bible-beaten Christian. And I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Like that kindness is coming through, like that love. And so you're right. I mean, just, trying to live like Christ in all the little situations that we do, is a very valuable thing. Man, we've gone off topic again, but
but you think about it, even going back to where the original topic started, right? Which was the whole idea of individualism and secularism and worship of self and things like that. It's like what Jesus commissions us to do is to commit and to arrange our lives around him, because he's the one that can best provide for us and take care of our needs. But then also to say, hey, you can bring me into everything, right? And I think that's the thing that it flies in the face of that individualism, because it's like, I may have a job, but I have a job that, yes, that job pays bills and makes money and puts, a car in the driveway or puts, a roof over our head. But I'm going to arrange that job around Jesus, right? And if I'm in sales, I'm going to sit in somebody's house, and the opportunity may come up, in conversation to go, hey, I believe in Jesus, right? Like you have those opportunities, and so you're leaning in for those, and you're looking for those opportunities. And so that, even of itself, now it's like, yes, I have a job that helps me live, but that job is not arranged around me. It's still arranged around Jesus. And so that flies in the face of all that individualism and secularism and all that kind of stuff.
It really does. So I guess moving forward as a Christian, community, ours, others, like, how do we better, let me think about how to say this without being offensive. How do we
It can be offensive.
Yeah, I mean, how do we light the fire under lukewarm Christians? How do we bring other Christians to the point where they're so focused on Jesus that we all together are just out there making disciples and defeating hell? I mean, there's hell on earth right now. Satan is ruling, and there are pockets of Christians that have little pieces of heaven, walking around. It's this battle between good and evil. It's, heaven and earth. And, like, how do we... You don't have to have an answer, because, I mean, every pastor is probably trying to figure this out, or, it scares me, man. Like, it freaks me out. Like, it's bothered me, like, from prosperity, preaching, not talking about sin and judgment and the need for Jesus. Like, it's leaving out so much of the character of God that you're not even actually worshiping the real God and understanding who God is and why we need Christ. There's lack of repentance. Even though we are forgiven, it's like, dude, we're still screwing up. You should still, like, tell your perfect Father, like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to do this bad thing that I keep doing. Please help me, be my strength, go from there.
Yep.
But like, I'm freaked out by the lukewarmness because I was there, and like being on the other side is like right. Like I can feel it. I know that I'm living the way that I need to live.
Well, I think some of it is, some of it is we've got to. Part of it is I think the church. And I don't want to throw a ton of shade, but I do think that the church at some point kind of abandoned the cause of discipleship, and instead of doing what Jesus asked us to do, which is make disciples, we instead came up with who can put on the best show, right? And that became the attractional piece, right? And you can go, I mean, the buzzwords in Christian communities are seeker friendly or attractional model versus missional model. There's a whole bunch of, bull crap about names and all that kind of stuff that at the end of the day, really what it comes down to is if we're going to look at something, it's the church kind of abandoned this whole idea of making disciples, and instead decided to have better buildings and cooler stuff and better social media and better websites and better stages and better musicians and better speakers and better preachers and all that kind of stuff, because that will just disciple people. And it's like, for me, the big aha in that moment came from, and I was doing ministry at a really large church that had lots of facilities and had lots of bells and whistles. And none of that is bad per se, until it becomes the means of doing ministry. If that's the only means of doing ministry is to get people to come into your programs and get people to show up at your services. For me, the big aha was I looked at all the time, effort, energy that would go into putting together like a Sunday morning service, which was tons. I mean, we would spend tons of time coming up with series and designing graphics and promoting those things and, band practices. And I would spend, the better part of half a day writing a sermon, and then you actually show up to do the thing, and you're getting to church at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're leaving at
feels like you're a rock star
2 o'clock in the afternoon.
More than
and then I realized like all the hours I put into this, if someone comes to and here's what all the hours and all the time, effort, energy that I put into pulling this off, it all goes to if the person that's coming and putting their butt in a seat, if they come to every single Sunday morning program that I offer and they never miss a Sunday and we never take a Sunday off, then all of my hours and all of the energy that I'm spending basically equal up to, in that person's life, 52 hours a year. Right? If we have an hour-long Sunday morning service, it's 52 hours a year, which is 4 more hours than 2 days. Right?
Wow.
Which 2 days out of 365, that's what I'm going to lean back on and say that's enough Christian influence in that person's life to help them begin to move further and further and further in their relationship with Jesus, but not just to move further in the relationship, but then to also begin to do the things that he did. That's crazy. Like it's out of control. Like that, but we think that's enough. In professional Christian world and church world, sometimes we think that's enough, and it's not. And so a part of it is, I think, some of what we see in terms of the lukewarm Christian, it's like we created that monster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like part of some of our choices kind of created this monster, and some of our choices and how we did church and continue to do church by the nature of the way we go after it, what it attracts and what it encourages is consumerism. And so what we've got to start to do as believers is we've got to start asking our questions, not the question about not what do I need to consume or what do I need to get, but what can I produce? And that's a hard turn, right? That's a big shift in terms of just mindset and mentality. Because if all we're thinking about is the consumer side of it, then I need to show up to church. I need to check a box every now and then. I need to make sure I accept Jesus and get baptized so that I can get out of hell, right? And then really all Jesus is he's our get out of hell free card, right?
It's transactional.
Yeah, it is. It's transactional, not transformational. And that's all I'm going to do. I've done my part. I've got what I need. And so I don't need to commit any further than that. But like you said, it's like that's ignoring really the other 3/4 of the gospel, which is, what Jesus commands us to, what Jesus commissions us and commands us to do in being faithful to him. We ignore that. And so the whole thing about even lukewarm, I think, is interesting. So in the Bible, that's said in the Bible that, when it comes to lukewarm believers, that God will spit us out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that, so this is crazy, and I learned this, a few years ago, is that the reason lukewarm as it relates to water is brought up in Scripture is culturally, in this time, lukewarm water had no purpose. So hot water has a purpose. Mm-hmm. It is good for cleaning. It's good for disinfection. It's good for, hot water. But you got to put yourself like back in a agrarian culture, right, where we don't have microwaves and all that kind of stuff. It's like, hot water has purpose. It's good for cleaning. It's good for, all those kinds of things. Cold water has purpose. It's good for refreshing. It's like lukewarm water has no purpose. Yeah. And so therefore it's tossed out, right? Because this has no purpose. I either need to make it hot or I need to make it cold. Yep. But in the middle, it's not functional. Yeah. And so I think that really for us, as we look at that, to go, this whole like consumerism deal and sitting in the middle of, I'll just cut my get out of hell free card and I'm good. I show up at church every now and then. I check a couple boxes. I'm just really here to get what I hope the worship's good. Hope they play my song today, hope the pastor doesn't preach for 45 minutes like I did on Sunday.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, when you're on fire like that, man, it felt
afterwards, I went back to the back. I'm like, how long was that? They're like, it was 45 minutes. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Yeah. And I feel like I need to apologize to everybody.
Don't ever apologize, man. Like,
butts were asleep on the way out. Hey, listen, my bad. But, like that's in the middle. Like that's that mindset that's going, all right. So basically what God is saying in that, when he kind of puts that lukewarm thing, like that language in front of us, is it's really black and white, in that sense of, hey, if you're going to be in the middle, I would rather you just not be here at all, right? Because you don't have it there. Like this has no purpose. So you either need to get out or go all in. Right, and that's what he's looking for. But again, I think like part of that, like as believers, we can't point our fingers at people and throw rocks at people and say, get out or get in. It's like we have to look at it and go, what part of this do we own? Well, we own, the church owns this because we kind of looked at Jesus's disciple making model and went, we can do that better. We'll just build bigger buildings and have bigger shows, right? So it's not, it's in a lot of part, it's our, and just as much as we talk about people, idolatry and idolizing things that are not of God, the church idolizes butts and seats, right? And we do things to put more butts and seats, right? Which is where the prosperity gospel comes from. Like as I said this on Sunday, if all we preach for like the good, easy parts of the Bible, boy, we could get people to come.
Well, again, it's another mirror of freaking society right now. It's like, again, everyone wants to feel good. They don't want to, look in the mirror and see the ugly truths. And so, like, churches are like, not all of them, obviously. There's great churches, but you're seeing this, kind of switch to let's just make sure they feel good so they come back. And so let's not tell them about this health thing. Let's not do this. Let's tell them if they do this, then God's going to bless you beyond all measure and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it's like, no. God is the blessing. God is you told me this, the present and the present giver. He is the same. It is the same thing. And it's so true. Like
he's both and.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. And, I've kind of, there's a purpose for some of these churches in a sense, but it's like the parable of the sower in the Bible where, if you're going to not disciple like some of these churches are not doing or not speak full truths, then you're going to have some seeds that fall along the path or in the thorn bush, or you might have a very small percentage that see it and still somehow grow despite it, and that was kind of me. Like the first church I went to, like when I, gave my life to Christ, it was as secular as you can get. Sure. And they were moving further secular. Yeah. Refused to have anything but secular music for worship, which like, you're not worshiping God. And it was bad, but I needed that kind of like putting my toe in it for a second. And then I was like, this isn't good for me. Like, this is not good. This is not truth. And I went to probably the far extreme was this other, it's a mega church, but I would say it is the best way for me to describe it, it slapped me in the face with biblical truth every single week. They preach, you know the fancy term for it, but verse by verse in the Bible. Yeah. Like, I mean, the whole time I was there, I think we were in, we were in Genesis for like 2 years. We were in, there had been in Matthew for like 3 years. 3 years in one book. Yep. But like each day that I would go and then leave, I'd go, oh, I gotta change my life. There's a lot of positive, but like that changed me forever because it made me see that's a mega church, the one I'm talking about that does this. Mega church. So there can be
and that's to say, like, it doesn't mean that all mega churches, which there are, right, that they're all bad, that they're all based on prosperity, or that they just care about the show. That's not true, right? There are, and I think a part of that is, especially when you have churches that are diving into what Scripture says, that are faithful to what the Word says, that aren't afraid to put hard truth in front of people. I mean, obviously, God's going to grow those things, right? And He's going to send people that way. And that's, when we talk about church growth here, and like I said, we just had staff meeting today, I don't look at it as church growth, but I look at it as every new person that walks into our door is someone that God has said, I trust you enough to take care of them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right? And so it's the same thing. Like you've got churches, large churches, that God has just said, hey, there's a lot of people that need to be cared for, and I trust you, church over here, to take care of them, and it may mean that you're going to grow to be big. And so that's not, I'm not throwing shade at mega churches at all. No. But I do think that in some cases, I think some of the work now that we're trying to undo is because of what the church invested itself in as a growth strategy, as an internal growth strategy of going, instead of thinking about how do we grow the kingdom, we're going to think about how do we grow a building, right? Yeah. How do we grow an organization? And I think the church is repenting of that, which the word repent is just a Bible word that means to change direction, right? Yeah. To rethink and change direction. So the church is now going, I'm going to change direction on this. That we don't need to grow organizations. We don't need to grow buildings. We need to grow the kingdom. But making that shift now means we have to untrain some stuff in order to retrain some stuff. Yeah.
And the model, you almost want to see people coming in but then going out, and this just constant flow in the sense. Obviously over years and years, but it's like you want to fill as many seats because you want people to hear the truth, and you want to make disciples, and you want to have a structure that people can be discipled and go out and do the same thing, make their own churches, what I mean? Like just grow God's kingdom. I think you guys are doing a really good job of just speaking truth. I do. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it and, kiss his butt here, but I do truly love that you are unafraid to speak truth, whether it's about yourself, but more importantly about the Word, about Scriptures. That's more important than anything. And as long as you're affecting one person out there, you've done it. You've done the thing that you're called to do. Now, if you get the blessing and the opportunity to affect many, many, many more people, then man, that's amazing. So
but again, that's the kind of thing where you go, like, that's God saying, I'm willing to trust you, or trust this team, or trust this church with my people that are hurt and broken and just need hope. And I do think that He does that with churches that are true to who He is, and that even comes back to, and I know we've been all over the map, but going back to that kind of lukewarm thing, and what's going to help Christians, it's going to help believers to be able to get to a place where we are making disciples. And this set me free probably about 5 or 6 years ago. and I was sitting with a guy named Dan Spader, who is one of the best disciple makers I've ever met in my life. The dude is brilliant, and helps Jesus. I mean, when you talk to him, like, Jesus just makes sense, which is great. But one of the things I remember him saying is, and if you look and if you just look at the story of Jesus, you just read the biographies of Jesus, whether you believe in him or not, you read the biographies of Jesus, you cannot deny the fact that Jesus is a polarizing person, right? Because he comes into a place and there are some people that love him and there's some people that hate him. Mm-hmm. And when you think even about that polarization, like you think about a magnet, like a magnet has poles, as a positive and negative, and the positive attracts and the negative repels, right? And so for me, and I think my hope is to encourage even people listening to this podcast is when you begin to commit to and arrange your life around Jesus, and you begin to do the things that he asks you to do, and commissions us to do, and empowers us and equips us to do, which is make disciples. If someone walks away from that, you don't need to take it personal, because they're not necessarily walking away from you. They're walking away from Jesus in you. And Jesus, because he is who he is, he's pretty polarizing, right? Some people are going to be very attracted to that, just like a magnet. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to be repulsed by that. But don't take it personal, right? And that's the thing for me, even when it comes to what we preach and how we teach and the things that we talk about here at Adventure, is like, yeah, we're going to preach hard stuff. And you may look at me and go, I'm out. Like, I don't, shut up. I don't like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
I can't not say what's...
Yeah, I don't take it personal. Like, yeah. Okay. I mean, it's like, I understand. Like, the truth is, I don't like some of it either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there are things that I go, I would much rather, be able to do whatever the heck I want to do. I would much rather be able to satisfy, some of these urges and some of these temptations that I have, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, it'd be so much easier if I didn't have to fight upstream, against some of the crap in culture. Boy, would it make life easier. Yeah. So I get it, right? I understand. For people that would come to me or that would come to me and go, yeah, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, I understand. Mm-hmm. Me too. Right? And that's why it's a process. And so I think my encouragement to folks, that are listening to this podcast would be, don't take it personal, right? Which is a hard thing to say, right? So much easier said than done. But the truth is, it's like Christ in us. He's going to do that work. He's going to do the work of attracting, and he's going to do the work at times of people going, ugh, and so that's the kind of thing. If that happens,
well, the way that
shake it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did cat.
Yeah.
Song, yeah. The way that I look at that is the same way that I would teach my daughter. Like, if someone's being mean to her, right? I'm like, well, listen, sweetie, a lot of times when people are mean, it's because they're sad or hurt or angry about something else that has nothing to do with you. And they think it's going to make them feel better by, being angry at you or, hurting you because they hurt. And that's, part of the story with the repelled people is like, it's anger, it's hurt. It's like, no, like, screw you. I don't want to be a part of whatever you're doing. But it's also like, again, this is all cyclical. We keep talking about the same subjects, and they keep coming up because it's just the reality of the world. But people don't want to change because, like you said, it's easy.
Yeah, easier.
It's easier. It's not better. And, there's a few secular sayings like, the best things in life are things that you worked hardest for. Or, the harder you work, the better it feels at the end. I'm forgetting all the actual sayings, but the sentiment is there where it's like things that are better in life are harder to do and to achieve. And it's like, that's the same thing with following Christ in a lot of ways. It's like, we're doing things that are not easy. Like, having discipline is not easy. I'm by nature want to veg out, be lazy. By nature, I want to, do drugs. Like, I want to drink alcohol. Like, in my nature, I don't want to care about anyone till I want to. And
Like, that is in me.
And I have to, through Jesus and through focusing on Jesus, overcome those things and battle those urges and those thoughts and those desires, just like you were talking about. And people that don't have Jesus in their life don't see that and don't want to see it.
Right.
Like, I think I told you this, but like before I was a Christian, one of the big things, and I started like seeing the truth. I started like doing my research, and I was like, it's hard to deny. But I didn't want to become Ned Flanders. I didn't want to change.
Yeah.
I
hey, neighbor.
I was like, because I love sin. So I've never taken the repelled people or people, that persecute you. It's almost like a badge of honor in a way.
Sure it is.
Because it's like you're trying. You're doing what you're called to do. And I still love those people. And I still will try, like if you come up in that situation again and they, who knows? Because God will do the changing of the heart side of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. And I share this with our church, and I share this with people. It's like, if I could sum up my, almost 20 years in vocational ministry with like what's the core truth in that, especially as it relates to like people in the world and people that maybe are not believers, or people that have been hurt by the church, people that like that. It's like, and if I could sum it up in kind of one phrase, it's that people have to know that you care before they care about what you know. 100%. Right? And I think that's the truth in that. And I feel like some of us, we feel like we got to be Ned Flanders, right? It's like, that's not like if you even look at like Jesus, the way Jesus did things, he had this really cool rhythm of show and share, right? He would show people that he cared, and then he would share the truth about who he was and who his Father was. And for us, it's like, man, we got to find that rhythm again. Because, if all you do is show, then by the time you circle back around to Jesus, it feels like a bait and switch. So you're really nice to me because you had to be, right? And if all you do is share, and then you're a hypocrite, which is what most people in the church get accused of. It's like, well, I'm just sharing the truth about Jesus, but I don't go out and live it, right? And so I think that is the big thing for us. And if I can encourage people with one thing, it's that people will genuinely, at least for me, my experience has been, if I'm willing to show people that I care, then when the time comes and the opportunity presents itself, then they will tend to care about what I'm going to share with them. As you're talking about even like the mantras of our culture, I think this was back in like the mid 90s, which to me, like, it's like one of those deals of like, how did Sheryl Crow know this was going to be true? And don't judge me for quoting Sheryl Crow, but she wrote that song, If It Makes You Happy. And the chorus is, if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad. Which is kind of like that's the truth that individualism wraps its arms around. It says, well, if it makes me happy, then how can it be so bad? But then you skip the next verse, right? And if it makes you happy, then why the hell are you so sad?
Yeah.
Right? Which is like that is the thing of going, it's like she knew, right? Yeah. How did Sheryl Crow know? But she knew. It's like that. Like, if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad. Yeah, we like that part. But if it makes us happy, then why do we see the trends that we see? With depression and anxiety and suicide and things like that? Because it's supposed to make us happy. And so I think that's the thing. As we as believers step into this and continue to step further and further into, reclaiming territory that's been taken over by evil and sin disguised as anything but, we've got to step into that with the kind of the banner waving is, hey, I'm going to show you that I care so that you'll care about what I know, right? And what we talked about today, even with our staff team, was, the goal of our church as we kind of press into, because I've been here for a year, right? So we're circling around.
Has it been a year?
Yeah, it's only circling. End of October will be year one, which, we had a lot of things that I would have loved to have done in the first year that kind of got sidetracked by a global pandemic, right? But I said one of the things, one of our goals, for kind of looking at goals, it's like I want to, and we're in this area, J-Town, 12 and a half square miles, but it's almost 75,000 people that live in 12 and a half square miles. And it's like, literally, I want our church to love the hell out of J-Town, right? Which it is. It's like you look at just the way that whole, well, if it makes me happy, it can't be that bad. And yet I find myself in all this sadness. That's hell. This is not following through on its promise. And I'm empty and I'm lonely and, there is no joy and no satisfaction. That's a good inkling of that's just dipping your toe in what hell's going to be like, right? Mm-hmm. And so we want to love the hell out of J-Town, but that's how we're going to have to do it. We're not going to be able to preach it and speak it, and we're going to have to love it out. And so that's a thing for Christians and for believers. If I can encourage you in that, it is to show people that you care, so that they will care about what you know to be true when those opportunities present themselves, and they will, right? Like, God doesn't waste those things. Mm-hmm. And so it may take some time, but good things do, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing. If you think about your life, the things that didn't take a whole lot of work to get usually don't mean that much. But the things that tend to be harder and tend to be a grind, boy, when you get to see some of that change, it's so significant, mm-hmm. or you get to experience it. There's significance in things that I think are difficult. I think that hopefully that's an encouragement for people. It's like, if I can sum up 20 years of ministry, it's that. And everything else to that is just it's secondary or throwaway, right? Mm-hmm. That if you're not willing to show people that you care, who gives a crap about what you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good to end on. I do want to ask Brad, this is the first time I've asked this, but I realize I should be asking everyone this. Off the top of your head, give me a good example of how you're a terrible Christian.
Oh, man. Off the top of my head, there's a lot. So for me right now, one of the things that I am really trying to figure out is so performance and achievement is so ingrained into who I am, right? We talk about, sin gets passed from generation to generation. That is one you can trace back all the way through the men in my family, is performance and achievement and success.
How you value yourself, or at least see where you...
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that being the case, I'm always evaluating and judging and monitoring approval rating and things like that. And what the result of that is, even though I work for a church, right? And you would go, well, you need, it's not bad to give the church your best. It is when the church gets your best at the expense of your family. Right? And so oftentimes what's happening kind of in my life and what I'm navigating right now with the help of my counselor, because counseling is great, is, all right, how do I begin to, as just a man, as a husband, as a father, to lean more into my responsibility and my role to give my family what's best and not what's left over. And the way that plays out is, I'm talked out. So when I get home and my wife wants to ask me how my day was, I'm like, fine, mm-hmm. Or I'm tired, or I'm preoccupied, or I didn't get done during the day what I needed to get done, so I've got to take work home and I need to get this done. And so when my kid says, hey, Dad, can we go outside and throw the football? I'm like, it's not just no, it's no, leave me alone. Yeah. Right? And so those are the things for me where it's like, right now I'm growing in that. Like, how do I successfully lead a church and lead a staff and care for the people in our church, mm-hmm. And then also do the same with my family. If I ever get any answers, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, any practical stuff there.
No.
I think I told you this. It was maybe a little snippet in the intro show, but that's kind of what triggered at least this podcast, and a real eye-opening, as you would say, aha moment in my life was my daughter saying to me, Daddy, why don't we spend time together anymore? And and then in that moment, my heart broke even more, because I also realized, my daughter's right next to me and I don't spend time with her. Yeah. And God of the universe, the Almighty, I spend no time with. It was just so I'm grateful she said that, but I'm with you on that. And I'm just trying to do little small things just to remind myself, reading each night, and it's tough. Yep. It's tough. And that's so weird, because we love them so much. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing about that. I'm so glad that you guys got to hear some of this stuff. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments or reach out, direct message. We would love to answer any questions you might have. And please hit the like button, subscribe, all those good things, and tell Brad how great this episode is so that we can have him come back some other time.
Yeah.
When we got some difficult stuff that I don't know how to talk about. So
yeah, we can do that for sure.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, man, you got it. Thank you.